Welcome to the final episode of Third Saturday in October for our 2021 season. That's not the year 2021. That's for the year 2020, 2021. Look, 2021 is not getting off to a great start. This show maybe not getting off to the greatest start, but I am Tennessee Bradley. My co-caster on the screen with me is Alabama Chris. Alabama Chris, how you doing?
It could not be more nervous for.
Do you need to take your blood pressure medicine? You know,
I think I do. I think my face is flushed right now. Just thinking about it, talking about it has got me moving. So I got to keep it limber for the next couple of days until the BAMA boys take on the Ohio State Buckeyes, Ohio State University.
You're just crimson through and through. Be sure to join us on the interwebs, on the www, on the internet. You can find us at thirdsaturday.inoctober.com. You can sign up for our virtual tailgate, get an invitation to that. The last one is happening during the national championship game. We'll kick it off the same time the game kicks off. You can also sign up for next year's Pick'em League and download our Tailgating 101 cheat sheet as well, so that you can have the best tailgate when we get back to it. Chris, today, look, we got a lot of bowl games that the SEC was invited to. Most of them played. Most of the teams won. So talk about that. Some people declaring for the NFL draft, moving on. I don't know what's happening at Tennessee. All I know is it's probably not good. And then,
we definitely need to dive into that.
And look, we may find ourselves watching a press conference like the one in my Zoom background of Tennessee introducing a new head coach. Not a good time to be searching for one, but it seems like the signs are kind of pointing that direction. We'll talk about that, but we also talk about good news. There's an SEC team playing for the national championship. Alabama's 1 millionth national championship on the line. Saban's about to have to get implanted like a couple extra fingers, going for his 7th national championship, 6th with Alabama. But there's a lot, and look, we'll try to stick to the good news. But hey, this has been fun. We've made it.
Oh man, yeah. Just a couple of months ago, I thought, well, I guess we're not going to be doing the podcast celebrating all that is SEC college football because it doesn't look like there's going to be a season. And here we are, a full season of an all SEC season, which was amazing, and going to spoil me for future years when we go back to playing those cupcake games and those homecoming games. But I've loved a full SEC season. We've got a team in the championship game, had a great showing for the most part from all the teams that played in bowls from the SEC. So this has been a banner year for most of us. And I know, again, we'll get into some Tennessee talk and some of the issues or some of the rumors or whatever's going on there. But better days ahead for the Volunteers.
Well, hey, as we roll Vols, let's just roll with it.
Let's get in it.
All right, Chris. So pretty successful bowl season for the SEC. We had 10 teams invited. We had 8 teams actually play because 2 of them got canceled due to COVID stuff. And that means 6 teams actually won. So 6-2. I guess it's kind of 6-2-2. If you don't play, I guess it's a tie. Auburn and Florida being the only losses. So last week we talked about Missouri canceled, Arkansas canceled, Florida lost, Mississippi State won. Then the second half, I have to brag on myself, of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these 6 games, I went 5-1.
Nice.
Georgia won, Auburn lost, Alabama won, Kentucky won, Ole Miss won, and Texas A&M won.
Yeah.
2 things. One, I'm thankful Ole Miss pulled it out because I went and got myself a bloomin' onion, and man, was it good.
Dude, I'm so happy that you did that. That's amazing.
And when Tennessee played in the Outback Bowl, the next day, my wife and I went on a date night to Outback. I mean, it's just kind of redneck date night, but we
Hey,
can't
get
say
it.
we can't say no
Get it.
to a bloomin' onion. So love that.
Nor
Get
should
it
you.
to go this time. Got a sirloin and shrimp, and we split it. And man, that was good. So thank you, Lane Kiffin. Hope we get to talk about that a little bit more later. Maybe just previewing some things. But then Texas A&M. Look, I heard rumors that Mond may be coming back, but word broke just before you and I hopped on that Kellen Mond is declaring for the NFL draft. Is that correct?
Yeah, just heard that today, Thursday, as we're recording this, he announced. So it looks like that he's moving on. And an interesting move. I guess he had another year of eligibility, and with this year, maybe he with the number of quarterbacks going into the draft, I wonder what his stock looks like. But yeah, I'm curious to see where he's ranked among the other quarterbacks that have declared, to see if he's somebody that is a really a big potential threat, a good fit with some teams in the NFL. I know that sometimes you didn't know which Kellen Mond you were going to get, especially with the
Right.
early part of the season, but he did seem to really rally toward the second half. And so looks to be a reasonable choice for him. I guess several people are starting to declare now.
Yeah.
Bama with 1 week left before, or a couple of days left before they play in the national championship game. Usually teams don't start, or players don't start saying things like that until after their bowl game. So I wonder now if my Bama boys, which ones are going to be going and deciding to stay. But it seems like that Texas A&M, they really looked good against North Carolina and looked like that they probably would have given a good shot if they were in that 4th spot in the playoffs. But played North Carolina, beat an ACC team, so that's always good. Yeah, who else also won in? Kentucky beat NC
Kentucky beat
State.
North Carolina State, which I picked NC State there. But Kentucky showing out against the ACC there as well.
Yeah, and that was one of the ones that I thought, I don't know what these odds makers know about Kentucky that I don't, because the record showed that NC State had a much better record. They were in the top 25. And so the fact that they picked Kentucky to win, and then Kentucky actually had a good game there.
Yeah.
Again, proving that Vegas knows more than I do.
Yeah. And look, I picked Northwestern to beat Auburn. It's just tough, but it looks like Auburn's starting to put together a pretty good staff. Mike Bobo as, I believe, offensive coordinator. And you said that you told me that Derek Mason looks like he's going to be defensive coordinator. Derek Mason's been a great defensive coordinator. If Auburn had waited a couple more weeks, they might be able to hire Jeremy Pruitt, because things aren't looking good there. But interested to see. I haven't talked to Auburn fans about what they think of these hires, but I'm sure I'll be hearing about that soon. The head coaching hire made me scratch my head a little bit, but the staff that he's putting together is pretty exciting. I mean, I wouldn't hate it at Tennessee.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of these names, like I've heard of Mike Bobo, I've heard of Derek Mason, and so to have some name people on the sideline, especially when you're getting used to the head coach, maybe that's a good move to pull some guys in that the fan base, the SEC as a whole, that they've heard of before. And again, maybe this is one of those trends as well that you've seen with a couple of other schools in the SEC, notably Alabama, that if you've got a head coach that had some success elsewhere but got fired or let go or whatever, to come in some role, like how Butch Jones went from Tennessee, coached at Alabama for a while, and now he's where is that? Some Northwest Arkansas or something like that.
Arkansas State, I believe.
There we go. Yep, there you go.
I only know that because I'm a graduate of Belmont University. Belmont's current president, Dr. Bob Fisher, was at Arkansas State before. Arkansas people, great people. And so when I saw Butch Jones going there, I was like, wait, I know this university. And that's why. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's just names that recruits should also know as well. Mike Bobo, I don't know how much they know that name. But Derek Mason, definitely a name that has some recognition in the SEC, especially. So
yeah, and you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, just interesting, because I did not know until we just kind of read that breaking news about Derek Mason that Kevin Steele was, actually, I guess maybe not at Auburn now.
yeah,
I've seen rumors that he may not be back, or he probably won't be back, but I had not heard an official statement saying that he was not going to be back.
yeah, you got to feel that with him being out of the head coaching search so early, it would be hard for him to agree to come back. It's just a little bit like, well, you didn't treat me that great there at the end,
Yeah.
so maybe I'll look elsewhere. But hey, who knows? He could end up at Tennessee, just with what all's going on. For those of you who haven't been keeping up, it's hard to know what's going on. Tennessee self-reported some recruiting violations, I think in November, because some players were held out of the last game against Texas A&M. What we understand is it's improper benefits given to recruits and players. I don't know if this is somebody bought somebody lunch or somebody wrote a check for $100,000. Those details haven't been released as of the recording of this podcast. But what we do know is Tennessee has hired a couple outside lawyers to come in. And what I understand from reports, this is not a good sign for Jeremy Pruitt. This is usually what happens when they think they've got a case to fire somebody with cause. I don't know what with cause means, other than if Jeremy Pruitt is fired from the University of Tennessee with cause, Tennessee does not have to pay a single dime more to Jeremy Pruitt.
Wow.
And this is big because of all the buyouts that they've had to pay to Derek Dooley and his staff and Butch Jones and his staff. This would be another one. So they've even gone as far as putting a freeze on new contracts. They've got 2 vacancies. Offensive line, Will Friend went to South Carolina for same position. Defensive line, Brombo, I think is his name, was fired early in the season. So those 2 vacancies can't be hired. Then there are 2 guys with contracts expiring on the 31st, T. Martin and Brian Niedermeyer. Those contracts cannot be negotiated, and they cannot look for replacements for them either. All this just spelling bad news. Is going to be tough for Jeremy Pruitt to keep his job at this point, is what I hear. So the question turns to, at this point in the coaching search, who do you get?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you hire a Kevin Steele to be an interim head coach and say, hey, keep our current assistants. You can hire a couple vacancies, negotiate contracts for assistants, whatever. Or do you try to go get somebody? And, some people say Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze has been offered probably better jobs. Right now, South Carolina and Auburn might be better jobs. I think Auburn is probably better job. Both places, Tennessee and Auburn, you're going to face Alabama every year. So South Carolina, it's just tough to recruit against Clemson. Tennessee's tough to recruit against Clemson. Auburn's tough to recruit against Alabama, and Georgia. So who do you get? If it were up to me, I'd go hard after Lane Kiffin for 2 reasons.
Ooh.
One, I like him as a coach. As a fan in 2009, I liked where it was going. There were some recruiting violations. From what I remember, most of those were tied to Ed Orgeron. So I'm not worried about him coming back to Tennessee. But Lane Kiffin's a different guy. He's learned a lot. Look, he left for what was his dream job at the time, head coach at USC. The way he left, I don't blame him for all of it. He wanted to leave and tell people in the right way. Word slipped out, I think, from some of the boosters or some of the administration that this was happening. Reporters show up. He's a deer in headlights. And it's tough to handle yourself when you get surprised by a bunch of cameras in your face when you walk through a door.
Yeah.
So I can't blame him 100% for that. But it seems like before he was hired at Ole Miss, he was kind of putting out there just a little bit that he would like to return to Tennessee.
Interesting.
I think that may be his dream job at this point. I think he liked Knoxville. I think he can take the fan base. That's a really tough thing. The Tennessee Vol Twitter apparently is just unlike any other team in the country. So I would say bring in Lane Kiffin. I don't know what Phil Fulmer thinks about him. But I think that could be an interesting hire, especially seeing what he was able to do with Ole Miss in year one.
Let me ask you this question about that. With you are a very, as long as I've known you to be a very trusting, a very forgiving person, a very friendly person across the board. And so to hear you say, knowing what you thought of Lane Kiffin several years back, to hear you saying that, it's kind of water under the bridge. He's grown a lot. He's done that. Do you think that the rest of the Tennessee fan base and that Tennessee Twitter, like you're saying, that they would be as forgiving as you being even you as a diehard fan?
I think maybe. I'm not sure. I know the fan base has looked at Sam Pittman at Arkansas, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, seeing these guys have their teams competitive year one and saying, why can't we do that? Well, if that's what you want, go get one of those guys. And if you have an inkling that one of those guys wants to be on the hill at Tennessee, bring them. I'd love. I think that. I think Lane Kiffin could develop a guy like Harrison Bailey or who's the new kid we got coming in, Salter. If Maher is still allowed to play at Tennessee with these allegations, look, with Eric Gray and Brian Maher possibly being a part of this this investigation, I don't know what happens if they're found guilty for taking money,
benefits,
or whatever. Is it just that wins are vacated? It's like, fine, you can take the 3 wins this year and the 6 wins last year. I don't think that really mattered to anybody. But can they still play going forward?
Interesting.
I don't know, but look, I don't have a long list, but Lane Kiffin would be number 1 on my list right now. I don't know how many Tennessee fans would be game for that, but I'd be all for it.
Just as a little side note, talking about Tennessee fans and Tennessee coaches, Will Friend, who went to South Carolina, was just announced with Mike Bobo this morning as both going to Auburn. So sounds a bit bizarre that they were just hired with the Gamecocks and now going over to Auburn. So
that's South Carolina's losing already.
And South Carolina's got a new coach in Shane Beamer. So the fact that they stuck around for 3 weeks, what's up with that?
I didn't even think about Mike Bobo was hired, or I guess retained at South Carolina because he was there with Muschamp. Muschamp is a guy out there. If you're looking for a defensive coordinator, he'd be a good one. Um,
Yeah.
So interesting to see where he lands as well. But hey, enough about Tennessee. We still got one game left
Yeah, roll tide, baby.
in the SEC and the country. Alabama takes on an underdog, I thought, against Clemson, but Ohio State with a dominant performance. Justin Fields with maybe the most spectacular performance of his career. I don't know how it stacks up with stats. Look, we're not the stat podcast. You're gonna have to go somewhere else for that. But just the big game atmosphere, the pressure, um, but also just national stage and playing through pain. Justin Fields took a big shot to the ribs. That's got to be painful, and performed the heck out of it on I guess Saturday, Friday night.
Yeah, I don't know if Clemson was just kind of stunned and they couldn't really respond, but it seems like that Ohio State could pretty much do whatever they wanted, especially Justin Fields, especially after a hit like that.
Yeah. So how do you feel as a Bama fan, having watched that game, knowing, okay, that's who you have to take on this week on Monday night?
You know, as a Bama fan, and as I've said so many times on this show, I am a Bama fan who loves the team, but I cheer from a negative place. I'm almost watching every game like, oh no, I hope that we don't mess something up. And so I get so anxious and nervous when I watch the games, especially when they're games that mean so much, rivalry games, like SEC conference championships, bowl games, now the national championship. Like there's so much riding on it. It's hard for me to, as a fan, really get excited when I'm so nervous. That being said, Alabama I think they started out as a 7-point favorite. Now it's moved up to 8. But Clemson was heavily favored as well. I guess 8 points is not necessarily heavily favored. But Clemson was favored as well. And you saw what Ohio State was able to do. If I just look at the matchups, I think that Alabama's offense going up against their defense, which has shown a few holes in it. And maybe the benefit of them not playing as many games as Alabama has is maybe they have not had a chance to work out all of those kinks.
They seem to have worked them out on Friday night against Clemson.
Yeah, for real. So I'm nervous. Ohio State is Ohio State for a reason. They are in this championship game as much as a lot of people did not want to put them in there because of the number of games that they played. Dabo being number one, ranking the Buckeyes outside of his top 10. They're a team to be reckoned with, and that showed mightily against Clemson. And I feel like that I would have been more fearful if we were playing Clemson this week, but that was predicated on the idea that Clemson would have just trounced Ohio State, and they didn't. So it makes me even more nervous for Ohio State because I don't really exactly know what to expect. Again, on paper, the matchups seem to favor Alabama, but I would have said the same thing about Clemson last week. So I'll continue to be nervous until Monday night.
Until the game's over, you will be nervous. Well,
and then I'll be excited or angry, one of the two.
Well, so Mac Jones has looked like the better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence this season against arguably better defenses. So I think that works in Alabama's favor. Sure. You've got Heisman winning DeVonta Smith, the first wide receiver maybe ever
it's first in the SEC, first Heisman winner that was a wide receiver since Desmond Howard won it in, I think, 1991.
That's right. Yeah. First one since Des Howard. So look, DeVonta Smith is a force to be reckoned with. One of Ohio State's corners I saw quoted saying, you know exactly who I want to match up against in the national title game. I'm not sure that's something you want to say. You're going up against not only the best receiver, but the best player, according to some really smart people in the country this year. And word is that Waddle may be a game time decision.
Yeah, that is currently what they're saying. Game time.
And I like this. Even if he's not 100%, I say put him in a little
Mm,
bit because look, that guy was dynamic as a receiver and a returner before he got hurt. And I mean, just think if he hadn't gotten hurt against Tennessee, again, my apologies. I'm wearing the closest thing I have to Alabama Crimson today. I don't think there's any question who the number one team in the country is. DeVonta Smith appears to have gotten better without Waddle, which generally is the opposite because you're better when you got somebody else pulling the defense over. I think
yeah.
that's what Waddle brings if he's able to go at all in the national championship game. Get that safety can't cheat over towards DeVonta. Look, they could go off and Najee could be just picking up, keeping people honest by hurdling them for 53-yard gains.
Well, that was an amazing hurdle, by the way, the one against Notre Dame.
It sure, I mean, that guy didn't go low, and Najee just went.
That just went high. Yeah.
My biggest question is, what can Alabama's defense do enough to slow down Ohio State's offense? Clemson couldn't do it. I don't know how good Clemson's defense was this year. But that's the matchup for me to watch is Alabama's defense against Justin Fields leading this Ohio State offense down the field.
Yeah, in these types of games, they are often won by people who can really step up in the moment when the spotlight is the brightest. And Justin Fields did just that last week against Clemson. And it was kind of wild to watch because I just didn't expect that kind of output against Clemson. But then Alabama, again, we've got some guys that can show off as well, especially on the offensive side, with Mac Jones coming in third place in the Heisman votes, DeVonta winning it, our running back Najee Harris coming in fifth in the voting. So three of our three top guys are all at least two of the three were invited to the Heisman, and the other one came in fifth place. So it's nice to have that kind of firepower and to see that if for whatever reason the Buckeyes are able to put a stop on the Mac Jones / DeVonta Smith show, that we just start handing it off to Najee. And then if, for whatever reason we have other tools in our arsenal, weapons that can go and compete as well. The thing that I have to remember also is that DeVonta wins the Heisman. He's also the player that caught the pass from Tua several years ago to win against Georgia in that last minute catch that sealed the game. So the fact that that's where he started and he's ending it with a Heisman season is just wild. What I hope really does not happen is that kind of that Madden curse or the Heisman curse, like you win it and then you go to your bowl game and you don't really perform to your abilities. That's what I'm nervous about. So I'm excited and nervous, but at least I don't have to go and apologize for stuff in my nervousness or getting ready. I know that Saban's daughter actually tweeted out something, maybe it was yesterday, about the possibility of the game being postponed because of Ohio State having some COVID issues. And she basically said, bull crap. I think that they're trying to just get Justin Fields more time to heal. But then she had to delete that tweet and she came back and apologized. That was kind of a baseless rumor.
But here's the thing. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And so I guess Tennessee's trying too. But very interesting. So, Chris, what's your prediction for this game?
My prediction is a Bama win. And I haven't even looked at the over-under at this point, but such high-powered offenses, there could be a lot of scoring. And if Alabama has weaknesses that we haven't really been able to shore up in a way that makes me uber confident, it's that we allow teams to score, especially with some deep balls. And Justin Fields and the Ohio State offense is very capable of doing that. So that's going to be a nerve-wracking part if Justin Fields is able to go off. But my prediction is that Bama wins. I'd say maybe 42-35. Keep it a good round number with 7-point touchdown and extra points. 42-35 is my guess. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I don't know why. I feel like, especially if Alabama can get to Fields early, if
Hmm.
he's still hurting, if they can just get a couple good hits on him, even if it's not a sack, um, that he may be shaking a little bit. Look, he wasn't shaking against Clemson, um, but Ohio State's defense was helping by shutting down Clemson's offense. I think it'll be a tougher test shutting down Alabama's offense. Um, Look, if it were a shootout with Ohio State and Clemson, um, I don't know how that pressure would have mounted because confidence was building and
Yeah.
you're playing with a lead. So you just kind of playing wide open. If it's tight, I don't know how Fields responds playing injured. But I still think that Alabama wins. Um, Maybe like a 35 or 34 to 27, 24, something like that. Not
Yeah.
quite as high scoring. I think that's just some jitters, national championship jitters kind of going on there. But really excited, pulling for an SEC win. Look, there's not much to cheer for in Tennessee camp. Uh,
Hmm.
I know a lot of my Tennessee fans, fellow fans, are probably going to be mad at me for cheering for the Tide. But hey, they're really the Gulf Boogie Borton pachyderms. So, um, le- yeah, let's take it home. And by let's, I mean the SEC. Let's bring home another national championship. Um, it's been on Alabama's shoulders for the most part. But look, just like the scout team can take credit for the varsity winning, I think the SEC can take credit for getting Bama ready and LSU last year, Florida and Auburn in the past as well, for getting those teams ready for the national championship game. I just want to say you're welcome.
Well, it feels like an honor for you to be pulling for it. But I agree. It's really difficult for me to cheer if, say, an Auburn makes it into the national championship game a couple years ago with Cam Newton. It's tough, but I still like to pull for SEC teams. Again, this is an SEC podcast because as much as the rivalries can make me angry and that I've hated this team my whole life kind of thing, I still want the SEC to do as good as possible. So I appreciate that, but I know how hard it must be as a Tennessee fan to say that you're doing that. So
Well, I
yeah,
married into a Georgia family. I cheer for
yeah,
Georgia when they're not playing Tennessee,
there
or
you
if
go.
a Georgia win is going to hurt Tennessee in some way. Um, I think the one team I couldn't get behind is probably Florida.
Mm.
Um, just glad I did not marry into a Florida family. Sorry to our Florida fans. Uh, but so, Chris, we got one more time to do this year. What time is it?
It's time to pregame, baby.
Tailgate, man cave, living room, pregame, burgers, ribs, chicken wings, chip and dip, pregame, scotch and a lot of IPA, Coca-Cola, pregame, slaying darts, cornhole, pregame. How you gonna watch?
So, Chris, look, I'm not expecting you to join the virtual tailgate. Last week during the semifinals, you went live on Facebook with just kind of some reactions. Loved it.
Cool.
Loved it. You know, just kind of getting the jitters out. How are you going to watch the game this Monday night?
Well, as much as I would like to throw some kind of wrench in the plans of what I've done all season long and say that I'm going to be at the game or I'm going to be at Buffalo Wild Wings with surrounded by all of my favorite wings and all my favorite friends, I'm going to stay at home and watch it from the comfort of my couch and my big screen TV. I've realized that this year, the older that my kids get, it's harder to get them to come and join me to watch some of the games because they've got their own things that are keeping them occupied. So I probably will be watching it for the most part by myself on the couch, but I think my wife is going to join me. We're going to do a nice little spread last time to watch some college football for the season. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. And I'm ready to get that game up there on that big screen. How about you? How are you going to watch it?
Well, I don't blame you, because your kids are at that age where, oh, Dad, you're doing it again. I can just see you yelling at the TV, frustratingly texting the others in your family, because I know your dad and your brother have a text thread going on.
Always, yeah.
Look, I don't know how your screens make it through some games like this, typing so hard, but I'll probably be watching the game with my 1-year-old in tow, probably trying to feed him dinner, give him a bath, get him ready for bed, that sort of thing, because my wife works in the evenings at home, but she's usually tied up. So I'll probably have baby duty. But looking forward to the virtual tailgate, our last one of the 2020 football season. Not sure what it's going to look like for this upcoming football season. We got a lot of time, but I've really enjoyed these virtual tailgates, getting to see some of our listeners and just connecting with them, getting to talk football and be together in some capacity in a year that otherwise keeps us distanced. So I'm excited. One more game of college football in this 2020 season. You can find us on the web at thirdsaturdayiNoctober.com. That's where you go to get an invite to our virtual tailgate. You can get our Tailgating 101 cheat sheet. You can join our Pick'em League for next year. You can also find our social media links, but you can also go to @TSIOPod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, where we broadcast the podcast. And
broadcast the podcast.
Join us for one more glorious college football game. Let's send the year out in style. Hopefully with an SEC Alabama Gulf boogie board and pachyderm win. I'm excited. We made it through college football season.
We had a season. Who knew?
we had a season. The Big Ten had half a season. Ohio State had a third of a season. I don't know. They got through part of a season. I'm really excited. I know what I'm going to say. Look, there's a big game. I'll let you say whatever you want to say, Chris, but I'm going to end it with a roll Vols.
Nice, man. And I will as well, but I'm excited. The boys in crimson and white made it to the national championship game. So I'm pumped as well as nervous. So roll Tide and roll Vols, baby.